want to talk about is the RRR, which is Recovery, Resilience, and Reintegration. This is something that we're thinking about changing the name in the next 3-year plan. We're discussing changing to Outpatient Treatment Services and get away from the RRR acronym. Some of the highlights of 18-19, as you can see, we served over 24,000 clients. 17,000 TAY youths were served, had about another 58,000 adults served, over 14,000 older adults served. And again, some of the basic components, it helped us with TAY probation camps, it helped us with the drop-in centers, older adults training, and integrated care program changes. And again, one of the big things that I think Dr. Sharon likes to call it outpatient treatment services instead of recovery, resilience, and reintegration. And again, I know we put a lot of money into the RRR program, and just kind of to dive into, again, some of the deeper detail of it, Lisa can give us some more information on that.
I should just stay next to you. Okay, so I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the FSP transformation, the direction that we're going in with what we will be calling outpatient treatment services. We really tried to listen to the feedback from our providers, our staff, our clients, and we found that with FSP, a lot of times there's such a steep drop off once they leave FSP and go into general outpatient services. And I think this was especially a consideration given that we're focusing on the highest acuity, not at risk for FSP. So we realized in our outpatient services, we have to build that capacity to make sure there's not a gap in services. But one of the things we're trying to do, there are certain elements that are going to be core components to outpatient services, and we want to make sure that is a consistent foundation throughout our outpatient services. We also want to really focus what we do on changing those social determinants of health that Dr. Sharon talks about quite often. And we are looking at the whole person, not just, okay, are we ameliorating symptoms? Do they have a shelter or a place to stay? But really, are we giving our clients the best chance at having a rich and full life, of having relationships, as well as things like material stability, housing stability, food stability, those sorts of things. So, we want to create welcoming environments in all of our outpatient services. We also want to make sure that each one has a basic core of groups that can be expected, of different outpatient interventions, EBPs that can be expected, and that there is sort of a logical progression for folks. So whether you're coming out of FSP or you're coming directly into an outpatient program, you will know what you can expect, the array of services available to you, and have the support that's needed. One area that we're going to be really emphasizing in the coming years is employment services. We're looking at starting a occupational therapy pilot program to support specialized employment services. We found that a lot of our clients are interested in work and would like to get into that, and we think that's a very important part about having a full and rich life. So more to come. A lot of things are proposed, and we're still working on the planning, but I think that this represents a very good step forward in building a nice continuum between FSP and our outpatient services.
Lisa mentioned the social determinants of health, which is a huge component for Dr. Sharon. He wants us to really focus on social determinants of health, and so there'll be a huge emphasis on that moving forward in this department. We think it's key to recovery, and so we will put as much dollars as we can to ensure that there's social determinant of health funding available. Next piece of CSS I want to talk about is what we call ACS, Alternative Crisis Services. Basically, these are our urgent cares and our CRTPs. We opened about 8 urgent care centers throughout the county, which gave us about 122 beds and about over 47,000 clients. Obviously, we have some ARSs, which I call Rich Residential Services, about 1,400 admissions there. And then we had 10 crisis residential treatment centers with about 147 beds, which is key. I'm quite sure you guys are familiar with the motion that was passed by the board where we're trying to identify over 500 new beds in the county, which is a huge effort. I mean, we're making every effort possible to identify beds based on the motion that was passed by the board a few months ago. The ACS piece, we have a director of ACS, Dr. Amanda, and so Ruiz, and so I'll have her come over and talk a little bit about ACS.
If you look at our network goes from triage to inpatient to subacute, IMD to what is called subacute or IMD step down. So ACS includes urgent care, CRTP, and IMD step down. So what we're looking at doing is increasing the flow via performance-based contracts. And we want to increase the flow so that we can increase capacity and get more of our clients and our beneficiaries in and to get quality care at the right time and at the right place, so that we can listen to what they need at the right time. We're really wanting to get your feedback so that we can get more persons in the right place. And please come and let me know what you need. We really need your feedback so that we can get more improvement in the network.
Just a little housekeeping here. One thing that I forgot to do, I'm sorry, I apologize for, is introduce everybody. I think I should have started there. We have Darlise Horn, who's over our PEI program. You guys just met Dr. Amanda Ruiz. We have deputy directors, and we have Maria Funk, who's deputy director over our housing. We have Debbie Ennis-Gittenberg over our over our outcomes. And then we have Lisa, who's over our outpatient services deputy director. Apologize for not introducing them earlier. Next component, big component, housing. A lot of money out of our Mhsa fund is directed toward housing. Lots going on around housing. I know you guys are familiar with the No Place Like Home initiative that the state has. Our deputy director, Maria Funk, is very instrumental in making sure that the housing needs of the community in which we serve are adhered to. And so I don't even want to try to touch what she does with housing. I'm going to let her explain that. There's so much going on. I'm going to just kick that to her.
Thank you. Good morning. I know that many of our stakeholders, if not all of you, are so concerned about the homeless crisis that we have in Los Angeles. And with 60,000 people who are homeless on any given day, and it's estimated about 25% of those people have a serious mental illness. So I want you to know, and I think you hopefully do know this, that DMH is a very important component and partner in the work that's being done in Los Angeles to end homelessness. We are a partner with Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority and of course the CEO's Homeless Initiative staff. I'm going to talk a little bit about the investments that we have made in 2018 and 19 and that we continue to make and expand to address these issues. So starting with 2018 and 19, we continue to expand our interim housing network. We continue to look for interim housing providers that we can contract with that will serve people that have serious mental illness who are homeless. We also continue to expand our permanent housing network and the services that we provide to people who are have moved into permanent housing that were homeless that have a serious mental illness. And we do that through our intensive case management services contracts and our housing FSP, providing those supports to people in housing. We also applied for 2 new grants that were awarded through the HUD, what they call the Supernova that happens in Los Angeles, and that allowed us to expand our shelter plus care resources, which are subsidies for people who are homeless and have a mental illness, by 277, bringing our total up to about 2,000 that we control and manage in our department. We also, in 2018 through 2019, we implemented a program called the Enriched Residential Care Program, not to be confused with Amanda's Enriched Residential Services Program, which is confusing. But we modeled this program after DHS's program. We aligned our resources together, and this allows us to help pay for the rent, if you will, of people living in licensed residential facilities, and also paying an enhanced rate for people with more complex issues that allows the residential providers to work with those clients. So that was implemented in 18-19, and then we continued to make capital investments in housing. In that year, we invested $65 million through the Los Angeles County Development Authority. 15 million of that was dedicated for the capital development of housing for veterans. And then we also, through a stakeholder process, we got a lot of feedback and interest in having a NOFA that focused specifically on alternative housing models, and so a NOFA for $11.5 million went out for alternative housing models. In terms of housing, since 2008, just have to talk about everything we really accomplished. Starting in 2008 and investing in housing, we've invested over $243 million to date, invested in 83 permanent housing developments, and that is for funding 1,762 units. That does not include No Place Like Home. That was all prior to No Place Like Home, which I'll talk about in a minute. 13 of those projects were also funding the operating subsidies to make the units affordable to our clients. The rest of them have subsidies from the housing authorities, and that's how they're affordable. The housing that we have invested in serves all of our populations, families, transition age youth, adults, and older adults, and they're in all of our service areas. So of the 83 developments, some are still being built. They're in different, stages of development, but 40 have opened, which accounts for 894 units. And I want you to know that even those 894 units, it's not just 894 people, because that breaks down into, of those 894 units, some are singles and 1 bedrooms, which typically could have a one person in them. But we also have 65 2 bedrooms, 37 3 bedrooms, and 8 4-bedroom units, which serve very large families. So that's important to know that we are, I know that's always been an issue over the years that has come up, are we serving families? And I can tell you that we are. And a 4-bedroom apartment can serve a family of 8 people. And we do have very large families that we are serving who are homeless. So the continued work that we're doing, we continue to make investments in the capital development of housing. I mentioned No Place Like Home, you're probably aware of that, Proposition 2 that was passed, and that is bringing $700 million, it's estimated, to Los Angeles County to continue to invest in housing. They already had the first round of NOFA go out, Notice of Funding Availability go out with that, and investing in about $430 million in projects that are going to be coming online over the next several years. We continue to expand our supportive services that we provide to people that have moved into permanent housing, that were homeless. I think right now, not just our pipeline and the whole pipeline in the county, there's over 6,000 units that are in the pipeline that are in stages of development that will be coming online over the next couple of years. We are launching the Housing for Mental Health program, and this came out of a stakeholder process related to the FSP redesign or transformation, and there was definitely a recognition from our stakeholders that we need local housing subsidies that we can use to serve our most vulnerable people. So we're not just using the federal subsidies that not all of our clients qualify for, and that we have to use the coordinated entry system to fill those other units. So through this investment, we're able to serve people in our full service partnership programs focusing on people in our homeless full-service partnership program and our full-service partnerships that serves people involved in the criminal justice system. And so we have begun that program and are working to move people into housing through that program. We also continue to invest in strengthening and really growing the licensed residential facility network. And just in case you don't know what that is, it's commonly called boarding cares. I think people often refer to them as boarding care homes. So we are working very hard with Housing for Health to really strengthen that network of boarding cares, to stem the tide of boarding cares that are closing, and actually trying to work to grow that network and continue to make investments in those efforts. And then lastly, I'll just mention that we also have our homeless outreach teams, the HOME team, which stands for Homeless Outreach and Mobile Engagement Teams, and they are expanding, continue to expand, and really are dedicated to serve people on the streets who are the most vulnerable, who may need hospitalization, who may need to be on conservatorship, and really targeting our efforts on some of the most difficult situations to try to engage them and help them move off the streets through our homeless outreach teams. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Just a couple of comments. I think it's important to talk about the boarding cares. Huge emphasis of dollars that we're trying to maintain boarding cares. I mean, you know, there's NIMBY issues. Once the boarding care goes away, it's hard to get them back. You know, it's hard to get people to site them in certain neighborhoods. And so we want to invest as much as we can around boarding cares. Also, a big piece of what we're trying to do with MSSA dollar too is leverage federal and state dollars to the extent that we can draw down additional money to put toward this platform. It would be great. And so that's another emphasis that we're going to try to do in the homeless area. And as I said earlier, lots and lots of stuff going on in the homeless arena, a lot of connections with other entities throughout LA to try to see if we can solve this homeless problem to the best we can. Okay, moving forward. Next component that I want to talk about is PEI. Obviously, we get about $100 million a year in PEI. Obviously, this is early intervention strategies that we try to work on. You know, obviously, it's prevention is early intervention. It's suicide prevention as well as stigma and discrimination reduction. Huge effort, a lot of connectivities with other county departments. You know, we work with public library, Department of Social Services, Parks and Recreations. A lot of areas where we can see where we can influence the intervention process, you know, early on. And so a lot of efforts around that from the department. We try to continue to keep those relationships with other county departments. Huge investment in that, huge investment in other entities around suicide prevention and things of that nature. To kind of talk about some of the 18-19 highlights, you know, we had about 79 PEI programs, about 38 early intervention programs, another 16 evidence-based practice, what we call EBPs, and 13 promising practices. Kind of get more into the detail, I'm gonna let our PEI expert talk about it in a little more detail.
Good morning. So as Greg mentioned, I mean, historically in 1819, in previous years, we've really focused on evidence-based practices or those clinical practices that we offer clients when they come in to see our clinicians. So this recent year and going into the coming year, 3-year plan, we're really focusing on community access platforms and really looking into communities so that we can serve people where they are to keep them in place. So hopefully they don't need to come into our clinics. They can get the support that they need where they are, whether it be in their schools, in their community libraries, when they go to the DPSS office or other places. So we've really made a concerted effort under the leadership of Dr. Sharon to really partner, as Greg said, with the other county departments. We have several initiatives that are moving forward right now with partnering with other departments to find people where they are and assess them to see if there are other, maybe not necessarily direct services, mental health services, but if there are other things that we can offer them in support with other departments, so to keep them well and in place. The other effort that we're doing going forward into the 3-year plan are really focusing on community initiatives that increase access and awareness. And we're doing that in several ways. One way in which we have our school-based community access platform. We are currently working with LACO and LAUSD to really focus and make schools the hubs. In many cases, we only get an opportunity to interact with parents or those that are underrepresented or those that don't come into our clinics. We only have the opportunity to interact with them when they take their children to school. So part of what the school-based platform is designed to do is make schools the hub so that the children are getting what they need, and when their parents come to pick them up, that we have social workers in place at the school sites. We're providing training to the teachers, training to the administrators, so that they are trauma-informed and they are able to support families when they arrive and need support. One of the other very exciting opportunities that we are moving forward with is our Transforming LA. For many of you, I see in the room, I've met you on other occasions, and that's the Incubation Academy, if you know that's Transforming LA or the Incubation Academy. It's an effort that we've built upon. We did a smaller effort months ago, or years ago, and now we're expanding that so that we can bring in grassroots organizations that really have the trust and the know-how of different communities to begin to train and build capacity to hopefully become a part of our prevention provider network at some point in time. So we are also focusing in on that effort. We also have the Regional Prevention Fund, which we are working very closely with all of the supervisor districts to look at prevention projects or needs within each SUP district that are specific to the needs of the communities in those districts, and that we really provide an investment to provide additional services in that area. The last few things I'll say is other opportunities for bolstering prevention efforts. One is that we're working very closely with UCLA to build out our training platform. Many of our partners, whether it's county departments, schools, UCLA is going into those schools providing trauma-informed training. They are also building a platform where folks can go on, much like YouTube or any other very easy, accessible platform to go on and receive training, to watch videos. And so we are working directly with UCLA on doing that. We are also moving forward with a number of other efforts, including mini grants through our contract with Mhsa and also our Re-Rise campaign. So those are some of the activities going forward that we will continue into the new 3-year plan. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments on that. Huge investment in schools. I think it's important that we focus on the schools. And I think the board directive is that we put a lot of emphasis on the school. And one thing about PEI dollars, when I first got to DMH, we struggled to spend PEI dollars because of the guardrails around it. I think those guardrails have been loosened a little bit, and we're seeing a trend now that a lot of PEI dollars are being spent. Not only spent, but people want more. And so, you know, obviously there's a cap in what we have, and to the extent we can hit these platforms like schools, incubation academies, you know, we're all open to that. But continue to do what you guys are doing, because the spend trend is much higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago, based on the guardrails being lifted a little bit. And to the extent we can, there's a huge effort by Dr. Sharon and I at the state level to try to push the envelope a little bit, more focusing on outcomes and then rules around how you spend and when you spend and when the auditor come to visit you. You know, let's talk about outcomes and what you guys want from us. Give us the dollars and hold us accountable. I think that's what we want. There has to be a 2.0 of MHSA. I mean, it was good when it started, but there's a lot of holes in MHSA that needs to be addressed statewide. And I'm quite sure you guys have heard about the possible redirection of MHSA funds toward homelessness, and we're totally against that. I mean, I think the board is totally against it. I mean, if they're going to redirect MHSA dollars toward homeless, we want to deal with people that's homeless with SMI and not just the broad homeless group. And so huge pushback, Dr. Sharon is probably up in Sacramento 2 or 3 days a week around this effort of trying not to get those funds redirected, because we said if you redirect it to homelessness, how do you provide the services for the clients? And our focus is, again, if we're gonna redirect it, we're gonna redirect it to homeless with SMI. And I think that's the piece that they're forgetting, what the the whole reason behind MSSA. So more to come on that, and I'm quite sure that'll be a lot of conversation about that moving forward. The next component is WET, which is Workforce Investment and Training. You know, this is a big piece. I mean, these are the training dollars. These are the dollars that we can use for education. This is where when we had an issue with recruiting physicians, we were allowed to put out this loan repayment program that allowed us to actually grab a lot more physicians and doctors to come in and work for the department. Huge effort around workforce training. There's a couple things going on at the state. In the past, they did not require a match. Now they require a 33% match to draw down certain dollars, and so we're probably investing $3 million. And it's not sealed yet, but I hear that we're probably gonna draw down about $10 million back from the state. So, you know, we're looking to invest that money wisely. And the WET program, big program for the department, and I think it's a big program because this is where all the training is. And you know, we're pretty fortunate to have Debbie. She's been dealing with MSSA since day one, and so I'm gonna pass this on to Debbie so she can talk about the WET program.
Thank you and good morning. As many of you probably know, every 5 years the state develops a 5-year WET plan, Workforce Education and Training. And so that's what Greg was referencing. And I think we have an opportunity to be able to match something like $10 million with the 33%. And so that will give us some real opportunities. And one of the things the state has emphasized is that the quicker counties can move forward with implementing the programs, the more we can demonstrate outcomes, and then more likely we can continue these programs into the future. So some